Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Tahoe Silicon Mountain's Mountain Minds Monday. Tahoe Silicon Mountain is a nonprofit here in Truckee. We've been around for about 10 years. Mountain Minds Monday is our flagship event. It's a monthly speaker series that always happens the second Monday of the month. Excuse me, we're having a little feedback. So our other monthly event is First Friday at 4. We do have that on hiatus during the pandemic. And we are going to be talking about one of our annual programs tonight, which is the Pitch Camp and Pitch Showcase that we do in conjunction with the Sierra Business Council. Next month for Mountain Minds Monday, our speaker will be Blake Treason, who's the General Manager and Chief Engineer of the Truckee Sanitary District. The best way to stay informed is to sign up for our email newsletter. We only send 2 or 3 emails a month, just letting you know what's coming next. And we don't sell our list. It's purely for Tahoe Silicon Mountain events. You can also join the community as our Facebook group and subscribe to the YouTube channel. You're looking at us on YouTube right now. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and you'll get an announcement each month when we start. We do have a suggested donation of $5 for the event, and the easiest way to make that donation is just to go to TahoeSiliconMountain.com. In the upper right corner is a donate button, and it's even easy to do a recurring monthly donation, which is the way I've done it, so I don't have to go back each month. We are, like I said, a 501c3, and so there is overhead. As you know, we've got taxes coming up just this week. We have a 100% volunteer board. This is the 5 of us, and we're always looking for additional help. And all of this is largely possible through sponsorships. Holland & Hart is a local law firm here that is also all over the West, and they have been our gold sponsor, I think, since we started 10 years ago. Our silver sponsors are Mobo Law, another law firm here in town, and Bare Knuckle Branding. And if you weren't lucky enough to watch their presentation last month, I was getting texts right after the presentation about how amazing it was. So if you have any interest in branding and getting your company onto social media, go back and look at last month's event, which was presented by Bare Knuckle Branding. We also have a whole suite of community sponsors: Nevada County Tech Connection, Tahoe Truckee Media, the Tahoe Truckee Airport, who just re-upped last month, the Lyft Workspace, where we're broadcasting from today, and the Truckee Chamber of Commerce. You too can become a sponsor. Here's a short link, a bit.ly URL, and bit.ly URLs are case sensitive, or you can just reach out, sponsorship at TahoeSiliconMountain.com. And on to the main event for today. A good pitch can make or break a company. And what we've done is we've invited back 3 companies who participated in the Pitch Camp and Pitch Showcase over the last few years. So for 3 years, we've been collaborating with the Sierra Business Council, running a pitch camp. Usually 20 to 25 companies go through a month-long pitch camp. We meet weekly and have quite a few Tahoe Silicon Mountain members who have been mentors for the program and help people through refining their pitch. And it culminates in a pitch showcase where 5 of the companies are selected to present to our larger Mountain Minds Monday audience. And so what we've done is we've invited back 3 people who presented in the past. We're going to have them remind you who they are, give a little update on what's happened in their company since they pitched, and then share a little bit about what they found valuable about going through the pitch camp and ultimately participating in the pitch showcase. So we're going to go through, Karen will go first, then Peter, then Allison. And so without further ado, Karen, just let me know when I should advance the slides. And where's,
Excellent.
sorry, it looks like as I copied over, your title slide went white. So you're gonna have to jump right into the challenge.
Hey, you know, this is the way it works. This is the way it rolls. We just kind of have to roll with it. So, hello, everybody. I am Karen McNamara, and I am the CEO and founder of Conscious Container. And, you know, I started this journey back in 2015, and I started it with attending the pitch camp. And I thought, you know, I have this idea. I have never run a business. I've just worked for big corporations, and the pitch camp offered, you know, some experience and advice. So usually with my title slide, it just says Conscious Container, and we're redefining the landscape of sustainable glass packaging. And what I'm going to do is take you through a couple of the opening slides, and they're really an important part of how you go and get your audience's attention. And so really what you always want to start off is, any of us, we're solving a challenge. So the challenge that we have here with Conscious Container that we're addressing is, we've got a single-use packaging waste crisis. And we all know it's destroying our environment and our oceans. It's actually taxing our waste and recycling systems, or the wish cycling systems, as some people call it. And what's happening is, we know that there is a challenge for corporations, that they are going to be and are starting to be responsible for their end of life packaging waste. So that's a challenge that's out in the marketplace for us to address. Next slide, Ellen. So what Conscious Container is doing is, we are delivering a refillable packaging business scalable solution, where essentially what we do is we sell, collect, wash, and resell refillable glass bottles. And we are bringing innovation into this marketplace by delivering a smart bottle that actually takes that, what is usually a single-use waste product, into an asset. And I think that that's a very powerful part of what we're bringing into this marketplace. And also, we are enabling corporations and businesses. With a refillable glass bottle, you reduce your packaging CO2 footprint by 95%, you reduce your overall packaging costs, and you reduce your packaging waste. And we are delivering this solution to beverage, food, and other industries. I've had the cannabis industry actually reach out to us. You know, we are delivering this to any industry that has a packaging single-use packaging challenge. So next slide, Ellen. This challenge and this solution have developed since I attended, I think it was the first pitch camp in 2015. And from there, I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but I wanted to sort of take you through the journey since then. And this has been, for me, a very organic journey. And, you know, moving from being in a corporate environment into an entrepreneurial environment really took some time for me, quite frankly. So after the pitch camp, I got a little bit more confidence and sense about how you run a business and what that's about. And so in 2016, I started on due diligence. I went into, I had a background in corporate America. I had no experience. So I spent some time doing due diligence in the waste industry and the packaging, looking at beer and wine and sodas, and spent time there. In 2017, I incorporated as a benefit corporation, and it shows a picture here of, I actually launched the business in 2017 on Earth Day in Squaw Valley with a booth, and just sort of kind of threw it all together. But what I knew I had to do is go conduct pilots and just, figure out, at the core of this problem is the infrastructure to collect and preserve the bottles so they can be washed and refilled. So incorporated, set up pilots. We collected over 2017, 2018, and a little into 2019. We collected over 70,000 bottles through different pilots. I spent a lot of that time understanding industries, making a lot of connections. I think that's very important as you go along, and trusted connections. And then in 2019, sort of rounded out, the pilots, brought a team on board. I started to be asked to present a lot because this is really a new marketplace. I wanted to mention one of the pilots. You can see a picture of the three guys. This is up at the Redemption Center here in Truckee. Truckee, the local waste hauler, worked very strategically with me on a pilot, which is just kind of an example of getting folks engaged. And then where we are right now is there's a whole lot. We got accepted into an accelerator program with Anheuser-Busch, the world's largest beer producer. You can see a picture of the pilot we ran. We had some collection locations with 2 of their brands. A lot to say about that, but not a lot of detail. But we are actually out raising capital, our seed round of capital right now, to really take this business to the next level. Next slide. So I just wanted to go through really quickly, it sort of, when Ellen asked me to present, kind of took me back to that original pitch camp and how nervous I was. The folks that were there, it was really a safe space for me to learn, what is it about running a business and a startup? And this is a picture of me giving my first pitch. And I can't begin to tell you how nervous I was. The resources were wonderful, lots of encouragement, very constructive feedback. And as a startup, you're always kind of scrappy, and there were no fees. So I was going, this is really great. And it was a group session. There were other people like me there. So it was, everybody was sort of in the same space. And then I was one of the startups that was selected to do in the final pitch competition. And I can tell you that was in front of a crowd, I actually froze. And I remember that experience and the lessons I learned from it. And I continue to take that with me every time. The few lessons I learned, I take in every pitch. So it is an absolutely wonderful environment. And I highly encourage anybody we have a big play here at Conscious Container, and it's pretty amazing where we're at. And it all started with Pitch Camp. And I'll end there, Ellen.
Hold the questions until all 3 of you have introduced yourselves and your companies. And I'm going to stop share and reshare because I had a little challenge with getting the slides merged. So bear with me for just a second. And let's get the second PowerPoint up. Sorry for the delay. And Peter will be up next. So let's get that share going. All right, Peter, you're up.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm a little bit nervous right now because my computer froze 3 times and the internet connection was unstable in Serene Lake. So I'm doing it off my phone and it seems to be working. But I'm the founder and executive director of Gateway Mountain Center. We are a 14-year-old now nonprofit youth serving organization. And we do a range of services, but the part that I focused on in this pitch, and we were in the pitch camp of 2018, and what I'm spending most of my social entrepreneurial energy on is scaling our innovative nature-based therapeutic mentoring services. Next slide, please. So the problem we are solving, our kids are in crisis and our systems of care are broken. And so these trends have been going in the wrong direction for a while now. Over the last 10 years, the incidence of children and adolescents, youth and transitional age youth, and we serve kids from 5 years old to 24. The increase across the US of kids suffering from depression, anxiety have really been increasing dramatically. And sadly, teen suicide has also been really increasing. This all came into harsh focus during the pandemic, and the public health statistics have definitely shown some big negative impacts from the pandemic of the last year and a half. So next slide. We got into this work we were doing environmental literacy programming and adventure programming and wellness programming in the alternative education schools in Truckee. So the Sierra Continuation High School and the Truckee Community School. And we really were on the front line of supporting youth who were suffering from serious emotional disturbance, who had early childhood traumatic experiences long-term, which we characterize that as what's called complex trauma. And we saw how challenging it was, how many barriers there were for them to actually get help with the existing county, government supported behavioral health care. So we were offered this opportunity to apply for innovation funds from the State of California Mental Health Service Act. And we won that grant. We started our program, and what we didn't anticipate is that we would get some of the most challenging cases right off the bat. So we had some of our first cases were referrals from school psychologists of kids we had a kid who had 5 suicide attempts, 8 psychiatric hospitalizations, at the time of referral was still, cutting all the time, and really high risk, high need. And we took on accepted a number of cases like that and started working with these kids one-on-one. And we showed some very significantly positive results. Out of that, about 4 years ago, we really developed and described what we were seeing that worked. And we created this method we call 4 Roots for Growing a Human. And those are root number 1 is authentic relationship, how you can really have a therapeutic bond with a longer session once a week, mostly outdoors. And so that's root number 2, connecting to nature. There's a whole growing movement across the US on nature as medicine. And we have really been recognized as pioneers in that, because we were actually the first nature-based therapeutic program that is getting reimbursed by Medi-Cal, certified as a Medi-Cal provider. Root number 3 is embodied peak experience. So not just being in nature, but accessing that flow state, getting to that edge of risk. So we intentionally have these kids like walking across logs, walking across boulder fields, talus fields, kayaking on a windy day on the lake, snowshoeing in deep snow. Some really interesting neuroscience that we're tapping into, and we're actually starting a research project to contribute to that, about how I could geek out, but I don't have time. Activation of the vestibular, the proprioceptive, the sensory motor neural structures in our brain actually strengthen the sense of self. And a hallmark of traumatized children is that those are weak connections. So we're rebuilding those. Root number 4 is helping others, connecting to community through service. And so this is like the treatment trajectory, and it works because it's increasing the youth's self-efficacy, self-awareness. We use mindfulness throughout all of this, like deep present moment experience. So we are treating now. Our caseload is up to 61 kids. It's effectively doubled in the last year, and each of those kids gets a one-on-one therapeutic session outdoors. Go ahead and do the next slide. By a well-trained, clinically supervised therapeutic mentor. So this is a really interesting, innovative treatment method and service delivery method. So as I said, our caseload has doubled. We're up to 61 kids now. We're connecting to very current research in bottom-up treatment, like not talk therapy, but the traumatized impacts, the impacts of trauma on the brain are in the pre-verbal sections, and so working with these embodied treatments is very effective. We have been assessing all of our cases very thoroughly, and we're showing really good results across all of the assessments metrics. The overall average is every one of our kids is reducing their symptomatic distress by 30%. A very interesting thing in the last year, especially with all the focus on health inequity and racial disparity, is half of our caseload now are Latinx youth. And a lot of data is out there showing that youth of color are so much less likely to engage with behavioral health services, 20 to 50% less likely to engage. Another amazing data point, especially on the low income Medi-Cal level, nationwide, the average engagement with therapeutic services, the behavioral health, is 1.4 visits. So the fact that we can have these high need kids really engage our program and stick with it, our retention rate is super impressive, like in around 90%. If the kids do a few sessions, they stick with it. So we're getting a lot of attention for that because it's a real outlier in any kind of program to be that successful with high need families. Go ahead, next slide. In this last year, we were supposed to open on March 15th last year. We did a $85,000 remodel over by right next to the Truckee Music School, and made this beautiful 2-story youth wellness center. And we were supposed to open right when the shelter in place happened. But we're operating now. It's beautiful. It's going to be amazing next September when 30 kids are streaming through there every afternoon. Right now, we have these really nice peer teen support groups that are happening in there. They meet outside. They met all winter long. Ace Hardware gave us these outdoor campfires. It was really sweet. Kids are roasting hot dogs and marshmallows and doing this peer support. Next slide. So in my pitch, I was really presenting a vision of going to scale, and that has continued, and we are really poised to do that. It certainly was slowed down. We were very close to getting a contract with San Mateo County this time last year, and the fiscal pressure of the pandemic, the counties were not able to add any new contracts. We're currently in negotiation with UCSF about a pilot contract with the children's hospitals. We really believe in our method, and the delivery system is very effective and efficient. So I don't have a slide on that, but one licensed therapist clinically supervises 6 highly trained therapeutic mentors. I'm one of them. You know, we have former ski coaches who are great with kids. They can get this clinical training and be amazing paraprofessional therapeutic mentors. So that one licensed therapist clinically supervising 6 of those people, each treating 3 kids, that one license is overseeing 80 hours of very effective nature-based therapeutic time. So it's a really efficient system. We believe in it. We think we could scale from Reno, Truckee, Sacramento, probably 2 locations in the Bay Area, and ultimately pretty rapidly, like in the course of 3 to 4 years, end up with 500 kids on our caseload. And ultimately we could probably license this to Kaiser or to Sutter Health. Next slide. So the pitch camp did really help me. I have been an entrepreneur for now 32 years. I was credited with kind of inventing the climbing gym in 1989. But and I've done a lot of public speaking, and I'm a guide and a teacher. So it wasn't a stretch for me to stand on a stage, but it was a stretch for me to do it in 4 minutes and to get really focused on the messaging. And I learned a ton in the pitch camp. So it was a great experience in doing that whole thing. And then thanks to Dave, his old friend Heidi Roizen was one of the prizes, and I got to go meet with her in person down at her house at Southlake. And that was a great experience and has since led to a number of meetings with high and experienced venture capital people. Not that VC is investing in us, but they are like making philanthropic investments. I mean, they are investing in us. It's not like a standard for-profit model, but we are getting a lot of attention from the people we need to, including big foundations and high net worth individuals. And mental illness amongst youth touches all demographics. So we certainly are resonating with some of these people who have teenagers with issues. It's very common. The whole thing also, we were just building our board and became a standalone legal nonprofit in 2019. So even the event of the pitch, it was so fun to have a room full of people and do all that. And a couple of my new board members were there, and it was a great timing to have that event, to win the contest. And I definitely think some board members really rolled up their sleeves and took me seriously from that point on. So thank you very much. It's been great.
Thank you, Peter. And I'm going to ask you all to bear with me for a second while I go back to the other slides so that Allison can present.
I'm happy to share my screen if that helps.
Oh, thanks. I'm almost there. So you're going to see a new logo if you had been at Pitch Showcase when Allison first presented, because there's been some rebranding. So let me go ahead and get that sharing. All right, you're on.
Thanks, Ellen. Yes, oh my gosh, I totally forgot about that. When we pitched at the showcase, our name was Community Yogi, and now we are called Good Elephant. We went through a whole rebranding process. So thanks for reminding me. So hi, I'm Allie. I'm the founder and CEO of Good Elephant. We are your local app for inclusive community classes and events. Next slide, Paladin. Thank you. So when I started Good Elephant, it was because I had become a yoga teacher. I was teaching at a studio, and I looked around my class and I realized, well, everyone looks the same. This is not okay. So I started a class at the local coffee shop in Carson City. And the people who showed up to that class, I was like, oh my gosh, like these are the people that I need to be serving. And there was a diversity, all ages. And so I started connecting other yoga teachers with local businesses that wanted to host their classes and events, because I found that made it a lot more inclusive and affordable for people. And so that's what Good Elephant does to this day. So we connect all kinds of event creators. So we've expanded from yoga and meditation to startup events, networking events, neighborhood cleanups, and volunteer opportunities. We're having a movie night tonight with a local filmmaker about films that are about badass women. So we have all kinds of different events under our lens of mindfulness, creativity, and sustainability. And so our mission is to provide these event creators with the resources and the connections that they need to be able to offer community events that are more inclusive and affordable for people. And we do that by connecting them with local businesses and giving them the software that they need to take payments and attendance and donations for their events. Next slide. And so from the community member side of things, we have an app for iPhone and Android. You can download it right now on your phone and find stuff going on in Reno. We're in Reno, Denver, St. Charles, Missouri, and Sacramento. And this is where you can sign up and view more information about all of our creators and our host spaces as well. Next slide. And so since Pitch Camp, which like Karen, that's basically how we got going. We were able to launch our mobile and our web app. We've got some pre-seed funding under our belt. We launched in Sacramento, in St. Charles, in Denver. And then just this year, after the whole COVID debacle, we were able to launch our online classes during COVID, and now we've been really excited with everyone coming back to in-person, especially in Denver and St. Charles, Missouri, because everywhere has different COVID regulations. So we're kind of slowly relaunching in our different cities, but in Denver and in Sacramento, we've been able to secure some bigger partnerships just in April that are really going to be expanding our reach and just expanding the number of offerings that are on our platform. And then just in May alone, because of those partnerships, we've already doubled our attendance from last month. So we're really growing right now. It's a really, really busy time and I'm tired, but it's a good kind of tired. So next slide. Yeah, so over this time, we've learned a lot. We tried a lot of different things. We tried a ton of different pricing options. So we had subscriptions for our event creators, and we've done different kinds of fees. But what we ended up realizing is that, Eventbrite and all of these other online platforms have kind of proven this model of a percentage type fee. So that's what we've settled on with that. And then we learned that our biggest differentiator is our localness, and our host spaces make us different from something like Eventbrite or Meetup. So we would be that local alternative where you can get a bit more out of what we do. And then we've also worked a lot with our product market fit. So we just transitioned into thinking bigger about who our target market is, rather than working solely with individual teachers. We still work with individual yoga teachers and things like that. But we've opened our minds into working with larger organizations, which has actually been that tiny key that just needed to click. And these organizations are bringing thousands of people onto our platform. So that's really exciting. And at the same time, we've also learned that it's great to keep our team nice and small. Every time we've grown our team a little bit here and there, and it's always kind of shifting and settling. And so keep it small and scrappy has been one big thing that we've learned. Next slide. And so, like I said, we started with a pitch camp. It was amazing. I was able to speak at the showcase, which was such a great experience. And now, even just doing this presentation, I'm not nervous. Because I've talked about Good Elephant so many times. It just is second nature now. And so that's the first big thing I learned at the pitch camp, was just having the ability to speak about your idea, about your mission, concisely, to a large group of people is such a huge asset as you're moving forward, because you never know what kind of situation you're in, what opportunity might arise, and to be able to whip that out and even just have your 30-minute or 30 not 30 minutes 30-second elevator pitch is such a huge asset. And then also just I always tell people I still tell people about the pitch camp. And what I tell people is it really made me get my shit together. It made me sit down and think about, what are our financials? How are we going to make money? What are our goals? What do we look like in 5 years? All of that stuff. And so that was, priceless for me, just to be able to have someone ask me that question, which I had never been asked before. So that was really, really wonderful. And then just the opportunity to get feedback from the community. The whole time we were working on our pitches, we were talking to each other and talking to the mentors and learning from the presentations that we were hearing, and just getting that feedback on my business and on my idea. My idea did change while I was in the pitch camp, just because of having to sit down and say, okay, what is this? How do I talk about this? And so it was super, super valuable to just be able to bounce it off of the community. So that's there's so many more things, but those are the big four. So thank you. Yeah.
So we're going to move into the Q&A section now. So for starters, I want to compliment you all on how you just went with the flow as we were scrambling to get some things together at the beginning. And, you've probably had to deal with that sort of thing quite a lot, where things didn't go as expected after carefully preparing a presentation. So Any thoughts any of you want to share on that? You know, how you've been able to just sort of roll with it, and what kind of preparation that required for you to be able to work that way?
Okay, I knew that.
Want me to go? So I just find every time I go out there, I learn, I look for nuggets. So every time I present and you come into situations, you just learn, and you just take that learning. And like Allie was saying, you just get, people ask questions that you don't have the answers to. And you just kind of begin to navigate. And, it's not about perfection. It's about, just communicating, and you learn as you go along. And so, yeah, I've had many situations where the PowerPoint doesn't work, or, I'm giving a pitch and you have to be able to pitch without your deck. I've had that happen. And then it's about being, for me, always authentic. I just show up, and I think just showing up sometimes is something we all should be proud about. But yeah, you just learn as you go along. That's been kind of my bit. Allie?
Yeah, I would say like the times when things didn't go as I planned, actually, they ended up going better because I was forced to center myself and be more authentic, and just not use notes, or not use slides or whatever, and just speak from my soul and my passion for what I'm doing, and that comes across like so much better than a very perfect prepared presentation. So I've almost just probably overcompensated, and I prepare not very much for my presentations that I do now, because I have my slides, and maybe I do some small edits to the slides for this specific presentation that I'm doing. But I have learned, like when I teach yoga, to let it come through me, which is at first was kind of scary, but now it's like every time it just comes out just fine, and there's nothing to worry about. So yeah.
Yeah, I like that. It's funny. I was thinking, with the high tech thing, all the things that couldn't go wrong. But one time it was like in 1991, I was giving a talk to like 200 people of the downtown Rotary of Oakland. And they said, "Oh, we have the slide projector." And the bulb exploded when they first plugged it in. And they didn't have an extra bulb. And it's funny, it's like so analog, like a slide tray. And, I had to wing it, improvise. I basically had to improv, for 200 Rotary Club people in downtown in a skyscraper. Anyway, yeah, I think, I'm a climber, so I think about it as like on-site climbing, and it's this event tonight is interesting, as I was really reflecting on autumn 2018, and what I thought we would do and what would happen. And certainly didn't foresee a pandemic or any of that, but there's so much more depth and richness to what we're doing. Like I wouldn't have it any other way. It's like a better program now. 2 years later, if somebody had handed me $1 million the next day, what we would have taken to scale is not nearly as developed and effective as it is today. And so I think building a business is iterative, and you just have to be a lifelong learner and in an athletic stance and ready to take whatever comes.
So I think each of you have touched on a variety of audiences for the kinds of presentations you do. So it's not all investors. It's, some of it's looking for partnerships, some of it's looking for customers, some of it's purely informational. So talk to me a little bit about what advice you would give to someone starting out, thinking about a company, and sort of preparing themselves to speak in a variety of circumstances. I mean, you guys are different kinds of organizations. We have a nonprofit and for-profit, and B Corp. I think, Allie, are you a B Corp or? I know
Not
Karen
yet.
is. Not yet, but thinking about it. Yeah. So what advice would you give to folks thinking about starting a company and thinking about the breadth of presentations they're going to have to give?
I think I would say just talk about it as soon as possible, as often as possible. And you just, like somebody told me, like, before you start a business, talk to 100 people about your idea. And there's no without any agenda or anything. Just say, hey, what if this? And see what will happen, because you'll get so much great feedback and you'll practice speaking. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, I like that suggestion, Allie. I think I did that when I talked to about 100 of my friends about this idea, and they said you're crazy. But
Oh yeah, that's the one thing. Don't listen to them if they say you're crazy.
One of the things I actually started doing, which has been as a sideline, I actually signed up for Toastmasters, and I'm listening to myself talking. You're not supposed to, there's all kinds of, but I think there's some tools out there. I've always had a challenge with getting up and presenting in front of people. And I have now done a lot of that in person and a lot on Zoom now since the pandemic, but you just need to get up and do it. And if you have the opportunity to get feedback as you're going along in any forum or in any place, just keep practicing and look for tools. And I think that when you have passion about your idea, that's what really attracts people to listen, to really actively listen. And then they can relate with you. And the last thing I want to say is I really try to understand who my audience is before I speak, so that at least I'm delivering some level of value to them. And engagement with investors, that's really important. And I do pitch to a lot of investors across the spectrum of types of investors. So I'll leave it there.
Yeah, I think Karen and I have a very different but similar, like, you're trying to infiltrate and change or relate to, this huge system, the waste stream and packaging, and I'm trying to relate to, this giant system of, behavioral health care and public health. And so I would say it's like, there are easier ways to do things, but I just encourage people to really focus on and develop their system thinking ability and sort of strategy. And I feel like I've learned it with a lot of trial and error, but there's probably ways that I was really fascinated that you're partnering with Anheuser-Busch, I know that took 10,000 steps to get alignment and meet needs that they have. And similarly, like we've infiltrated the system of care. Like, we're contracted by Placer County and Nevada County and funded by the state, and that took 10,000 steps. And a lot of times I'm just like, wow, it would have been easier just to like set this up in Mill Valley and do nature therapy for rich kids, boom, easy. But I have a bigger vision, and I want to change the system by showing a better way. And so being strategic, thinking systemically, and being patient is I just think the patient thing, like, it always takes longer, but if you stay in the game. And I really agree with all of that. All three of us, I think, as entrepreneurs, came back to that, like, we have an embodied, passionate relationship to our enterprises, and we can show up and share that, and that attracts more energy, more support, more partnership. So those would be my 2 cents.
So I imagine the nature of your presentations have changed over the last year. So you guys were out giving presentations for a few years before the pandemic hit. Aside from being online, what's different about engaging with an audience that sometimes you can't see? You had to adapt your techniques at all? Do you feel like it's easier to get meetings because people don't have to travel, or what's different about it in the last year?
I have to say, I'm comfortable in this environment. I know some people, it might have taken a while or they were uncomfortable, but I think that this pandemic has been a gift in regards to raising capital and going out and giving presentations. Number one, I don't have to travel. Number two, I don't have the money to travel. And so as an entrepreneur that's trying to reach an audience, I think it's been absolutely brilliant. And then you can have your presentation, and then, you can see people. And so I always try when I'm giving a presentation to have as much as possible the key folks lined up next to me, because Zoom or whatever format, and watch their expressions, because that's very important to see the reactions. Like I was just giving a presentation to another large global beverage producer, and the key guy, I could see him shaking his head, on the screen. But I just think it's been very timely in regards to who we're reaching and how quickly we're reaching and how effective we can be in this forum. And quite frankly, this is about sustainability and not CO2 emissions. Our business is about, reducing your CO2. This is brilliant. And I think that I think face-to-face is very important, that connection, but this has been very effective, this format, over the pandemic, as well as several other I'm so grateful for some of the things that have happened during this time, but that's one of them. I think it's a brilliant platform for what we're doing.
Yeah, Allie, I know it's sort of forced you into doing some online classes. Is that something that's going to continue?
Yeah. There's so many things to say about it, and there's silver linings and there's challenges that have come with it, especially for my company, which was centered around in-person events. And so, we had to quickly pivot, launch our online integrations and all of that, which we did. But online doesn't, as I'm sure we all know, online doesn't provide that same feeling of community connection that in-person events can. There's just no way that it could. It's like there's definitely more quantity. Like I totally alongside Karen of like, it's so cool to be able to pitch at any 1 million cups in the country right now, or talk to any investor anywhere in the world. If you get a meeting, you got the meeting, and that's amazing. And so nothing like that's amazing. But just within the last couple months, being able to meet with potential partners in Denver in person has been one of the huge reasons why we are growing right now, because that in-person meeting and the connection is such there's no replacement for it. And so I'm obviously personally very biased towards in-person, and my team has helped me also embrace the online world too. And so we're offering hybrid events and things like that too. So it's been such a great personal work to do this.
Yeah, for us, being authentic, we were actually one of the, probably at one point we might have been one of the only state-funded, county contracted agencies continuing to do in-person treatment of youth with serious emotional disturbance. Because even at the peak of the pandemic, where we weren't able to drive kids in our personal vehicles, we still could meet them outside their house and go for a walk, or their mom could drive them to the trailhead. So it was very validating of nature-based therapy. And most of my best donor engagements were on skate skis this winter. So I'm the go-to private lesson person for the Sugar Bowl homeowners. I don't charge anything. I'm very, so I can do it right in front of, I'm not poaching, but I say, I'll teach you how to skate ski. And then it doesn't have to be that same day. You sit down and listen to my pitch. So I'm gearing up to do a series of meetings, and I'm actually planning to drive to the Bay Area and go for trail runs and nature bathing experiences with these people. That being said, our company does a ton of meetings on Zoom and all that, but I do think, since I'm selling the benefits of nature as medicine and nature therapy, I am leaning toward trying to get people to sit with me outside. Even our space, we had this beautiful backyard. Unfortunately, we thought the town of Truckee owned it. They thought they owned it, and turns out the PUD owns it, but we still use it like it's our own. And there's a forest back there, and so anyway, we do that. It's interesting, like there $1.3 billion of venture capital funding has gone into these mental health apps startups, and that's great. But the more, the kids we work with don't really do well with that. They need the in-person human relationship, and they need to exercise outside with us. So we're kind of going in that opposite direction in every way we can.
We can certainly appreciate that desire to be in person, and actually in 2020 we elected to do an off year for Pitch Camp and Pitch Showcase, but we're gearing up for and watching for when we're going to be permitted to have that many people in person, and planning to re-engage with Sierra Business Council on offering this again. So as we wrap up, any parting thoughts you'd like to share with our audience, because we get lots and lots of views after the fact. And so please share if there's anything you'd like to leave as a parting thought.
Oh, you go, Karen.
No, you go, Allie. I'll go after you.
Okay. I would just say, I just wanted to echo Karen's comment earlier about knowing your audience. I've had a few really intense learning experiences where I didn't do my research, and it was tough. So just taking a few minutes to look the person up on LinkedIn, or to understand the community that you're talking to is a huge help. And then also one thing that I've learned from being an organizer of 1 Million Cups and just attending our 1 Million Cups events throughout the years, is just being able to accept feedback gracefully, and without being defensive, without having to explain yourself, practicing that, just stepping back, accepting it, saying thank you, and moving on. So that's another big thing I've learned from speaking over time, for sure. So that's all I want to say.
My one parting thought is that you don't have to be a tech company to be a startup. And I pitch to a lot of VCs and others, and it's like startup kind of equates to tech. And we actually do have a tech play. It's not what we lead with, but we do have it. But I want to encourage people who have other ideas. I mean, Peter, yours is not a real tech. It's definitely not a tech play, right? And well, I don't think you have any technology. At least I haven't heard you talk about it so much. But if you've got a idea that has a challenge area and you have a solution, it doesn't have to have tech in it. And I want to encourage people I'm working to break that mold a little bit. It's challenging. And also, female founders don't get a whole lot of capital. And I don't talk about it at all, because the more we talk about something, it becomes a reality. And I'm observing as I'm going along, but do not be inhibited by what you hear out there. If you've got a good idea, tech or not, just start traveling the path. And the Pitch Camp is an absolutely great place to start. It was for me.
I'll just give a public service announcement to take care of yourself, get outside, take in the forest molecules that are blowing around that raise your immune system. Get off the screen when you can, move your body through rough ground. And most of all, you know, if you're around any children, you know, because we're so on the front line of, you know, children who had really hard times in their early years, you know, like whether it's your kids or the neighbor kids or kids you randomly run into, boy, humans do really well with true, deep, authentic connection. And so I'll just leave it there. I mean, but you know, really, if you're starting a business, it's going to be stressful. It's going to be intense, and that self-care piece is super important. You know, someone said, you know, you got to be crazy to start this business. I've actually been studying like the mental health profiles of entrepreneurs. It's kind of interesting. So if you get into it, take care of yourself. It's very important.
Well, thank you all for sharing your hard-earned tips and tricks. And we wish you well, and we hope you'll come back and share with our community again, and maybe even do a little mentoring for one of our future pitch camps. Just want to remind the rest of the audience that we meet the second Monday of the month. And so join us on Flag Day on June 14th is our next meeting, and peruse the YouTube channel and find some of our past presentations. I think entrepreneurs will find last month's presentation pretty helpful. And again, just thank you for sharing your time with us. And I'm going to sign it off for now.